Okay, so you may be asking, maybe some of you came here tonight, why do I need a marketing strategy? Well, let me ask you, what do you think the fallout is, or what are the consequences of not having a marketing strategy? Well, the whole thing is there needs to be a dialogue going on with your prospective customer. And if you don't, and the dialogue has to be more than just you telling them about your company and what the value you bring. You may have to communicate that value in other ways where you're not there. Okay, good. No, that's great. So would everybody agree that you do need to have a marketing strategy? Does everybody agree with that? Okay. Okay, here's some reasons why that, I'll just put these all here, why marketing is essential. As you alluded to, sir, that it's about customer engagement. We have to start a dialogue with our customer or our prospective customer, and through that dialogue we have to communicate our value to them. And I'm going to talk about value in a little bit more in a minute, what that means. In order to do that, we have to spend time to convey a know, trust, and like scenario to a prospective customer, that we are here to solve their problem, that it is our goal to solve their problem, that we are able to solve their problem or help them with some goal that they're trying to achieve. It's about building relationships, and we have to build relationships in order to get a free-flowing information between two people. There has to be a relationship between them. Otherwise, you're not going to get a free flow of information. And that is important, that you have to establish relationships with your customers or potential customers so that you can understand what their needs are when you mention that. Yeah. And if we do that, this will grow our sales, our market share. We'll have more customers, which leads to revenue and profits and a sustainable growing business. And one question I'd like to ask, and I'd like to see if somebody might have the answer to this, why do you think that, or first let me back up and ask this, do you think that having a marketing strategy is essential to having a profitable business? Another aspect that I think you ought to consider is that if we're thinking from a marketing perspective, we are communicating value to our customers. And value, and it's got to be, and we'll talk about this, is value as communicated in the customer's terms. And I would just tell you is that prospective customers are willing to pay for value. And it's important to understand that. If you have something or you can do something that is valuable to them, customers are willing to pay for it. And so it's important through your marketing efforts to communicate that you can do this. So that's a reason. I'm talking very broadly right now, and we're going to get down a little bit deeper here. And then, profitable business means a sustainable, growing business. So just wanted to hammer home why it is essential that we have a marketing strategy. If you don't remember anything from this presentation, remember this slide, okay? I can't tell you how many times I've talked to prospective clients or people that are starting a business, and they say, we're building a product, and we're just going, like you say, willy-nilly, doing this, doing that, and we hope that people are going to see it and they're going to buy our product. And the operative word there was hope. And hope's not a strategy. So you have to be very deliberate about your objectives and what you're trying to accomplish with your marketing. It is not something that is fuzzy or is, what I would say is like an arm-waving proposition. You have to be very deliberate, intentional, and very precise with what you do with your marketing. So remember that slide. We'll talk a little bit about the planning process. We have, when we go to clients, we typically go through 3 phases. The first one is the assessment and analysis. The second is what we call the ideation and planning. And the phase 3, we call it implementation and operationalization. I'm not sure if that's a real word, but I'm going with it anyway. anytime you're going to set out to develop a marketing strategy, you have to take an assessment of the current situation. Okay, what's going on right now? What do my prospective current customers believe about the current marketplace? Who are my competitors? What are their strengths and weaknesses? It's getting an understanding of what's going on around you, because in order to address problems or address issues associated with growing a business, you need to know what those issues are. And you may seem like that's a trivial point, but with a lot of businesses, they don't do that. So this is the assessment and analysis phase where we look at competitors, we look at the beliefs and attitudes that we see in the market. We may want to see what customers are saying about us and what they believe about us. It may be that what they believe about us is completely different from what we think they believe about us. And it's important, so we want to reconcile that as quickly as possible. And then looking at other things, we call this SWOT, which is strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. We'll talk about that later in the presentation. And looking at what we're doing right now and what kind of return on investment are we getting from what we're doing right now. Is it good? Bad? So that's very important. So that's the first phase. Second phase is, once we've done an assessment of where we are, we make a roadmap for how we're going to achieve our business goals. We establish the goals that we want. What is a good outcome from our marketing efforts? And also, what's important is and some of these things I talk about, we may define our target audience. Here we're maybe crafting what our value proposition is. Maybe we're going to establish some measurements in order to ensure we're moving towards those goals that we've set out for ourselves. This is the part where the strategy formation takes place. And then finally, we implement the strategy. Okay? These are all the tactics and other initiatives that we implement. And it's important. The one thing that I'd say is most important here is to measure the results of what we're doing and adjust as necessary. If we're not achieving what we call KPIs, key performance indicators, if we're not meeting them, we need to understand why we're not meeting them. If, for example, you've got a website out there and one of your KPIs is number of pages visited, or maybe it's they download a video or something and that's not happening, we need to understand why that's not happening. So that's a real important part. But this is just gives you an overview of the planning process and how we integrate the strategy into a particular situation.